that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney, or current Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. Now today I have for you the first part of a duology within a 19-book series, because this is the way the series is going to work with a lot of the authors, so they get 2 books and then jumps on to the next one. We have the Dark Tide duology by Micheal Stackpole. Yes, the one who wrote the X-Wing books in I, Jedi, and collaborated a lot with Timothy Zahn. Now, Timothy Zahn is not a part of this series, like, at all, but a lot of his characters are used, and you kind of accept it because Micheal Stackpole's, like, one of the few people that was, like, super collaborative with Timothy Zahn. But last time I did this, I think I reviewed these books as a whole together, and I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to review them individually. So this is New Jedi Order Book 2, Dark Tide Part 1, Onslaught. And here, I have it in plastic casing because, you know, it doesn't matter because the Japanese art's way cooler anyway. But this is actually one of the shorter Star Wars books you could ever read. This book's only 292 pages, so it's not that long. I want to see what I can give you the gist of this book without getting too much into spoilers. One thing I did write down is that it's 6 years since Hand of Thrawn, and two months since the events of Vector Prime. So it actually kind of worked out with my Dune reading, because it allowed some real lifetime and time within the universe to have settled in. Several things. I love this book. I gotta be honest, I think I like Micheal Stackpole's New Jedi Order books more than I enjoy his own original stuff like X-Wing and I, Jedi. In fact, you know, Corran has always been fine to me, but it is only here in New Jedi Order where I finally started to really love Corran, where I've only ever been, you know, impartial. I've never hated him, but I've never loved him either. And I definitely think the Gary Stu applies in certain instances within, especially I, Jedi. Even though I heard Micheal Stackpole in person at Legends Con and heard what he had to say, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't raise my hand, but he is most certainly a Gary Stu in that book. I don't care what you say, he was. Anyway, not the point. Here he is splendid, and of course the Rogue Squadron people get a lot of time to shine because it is Micheal Stackpole's characters, but we also get amazing stuff with Anakin and Mara and Jason and everyone else within this franchise in this story. But yeah, so we get to learn more about Gavin and what he's been up to. We get to see more of Kip Dern. We get to see more of Corran Horn. We learn about this new character, Ganner, who plays, surprisingly, a very important role, but I didn't realize that in this book. But he will be a character moving forward in the Expanded Universe for now. Also, Jaina ends up becoming a part of Rogue Squadron, which is something I always really liked, because Jaina's always been this sort of pilot and mechanical person like her father. But it's so cool because, you know, Luke was a part of Rogue Squadron initially, and it was cool to have Jaina, you know, kind of like take up that spiritual mantle. I thought that was great to see. Here we start to get little inklings of what the Vong are all about. We're still figuring that all out. I mean, of course, you read the series before, you know, but this book sort of starts to open that up and explain some things. As we go forward, midway through the series, you're going to pretty much know everything about them. You know, it becomes pretty clear what their motivations are, what they do, so in the same instance, I can understand why people would get kind of fed up with the series lasting so long, because at some point you kind of get it, and you're like, why doesn't it just end? Me, it just gave me more time to be in the expanded universe, so I'm not exactly against it. I'm trying to talk about this book without spoilers. it's cool. We get to see Dantooine again. There's a big final battle, like not final battle of the whole series, but for this book, there's a big final battle on Dantooine, which is cool because Dantooine's been used a lot before, right? Not really during the OT, besides Tarkin threatening to blow it up, Other than that, it wasn't really used. We also have the Ruins of Dantooine book, which no one cares. We have, I think, KOTOR, we go to Dantooine, if I'm not mistaken, so that's cool. And then, of course, we have the prequels with the Clone Wars 2003, where Mace Windu beats up all those robots on Dantooine. But, it's cool to see this place again. We also deal a bit more with Mara as she's dealing with this mysterious disease that she has and trying to deal with that and come to terms with that, while also teaching and mentoring Anakin as Anakin Solo is protecting her. We also have the return of Elagos, who we Stackpole had always collaborated with Zahn, so Elagos first appeared, I think, chronologically in I, Jedi, but also was in Hand of Thrawn. And he's here again, and I think Elagos is an absolutely phenomenal character. I love him a lot. I think he's really cool, and I'm, without talking about things, I am very, I enjoy his storyline, even though stuff happens. That's what I'll say there to that. We get to learn a bit more about Jaina. Jason, of course, gets some love here. Luke gets some love. Everybody here does their part. It's kind of like Kip and Ganner for a lot of the book, and Leia and Elagos, and then Anakin and Mara, and Jason and Luke. And that's kind of the dynamic that we're following. And then Jaina and Rogue Squadron. That's kind of like the gist of the structure of this book and what you'll be reading within it. Yeah, I'm trying not to spoil anything, guys. But yeah, everything happened in the first book. Corrin ends up going with Ganner to this planet, kind of scope things out, check what's going on. They learn about that the Vaughn keep slaves and everything, that they really enjoy pain on a sadistic level. They love pain, and that's something that we learn in this book. I mean, it's basically said in the last book, but it's hammered the nail in the coffin in this book that they really enjoy hurting themselves. We also know that they believe in gods, which is also kind of mentioned last book, but they believe in gods, they have a religion, they hate machines, and they love to hurt themselves, and they want to conquer the galaxy, or at least that's what's assumed to be the case, and that's what we know right now. Also, back on Coruscant, of course, Boris Phelan, everyone. To be fair, in a sense, it makes a little bit of sense, but they go, look, you've had a lot of minor crises in the past, and they've always been dealt with. Black Fleet, that was, a minor crisis in the grand scheme of things. You took care of that. Planet of Twilight, you took care of that. Children of the Jedi, you took care of that. Darksaber was a little bit of a bigger thing because it included, the Empire at the time. But, Crystal Star, which for all intents and purposes was a minor thing. It was a blip in the radar in terms of the entire galaxy, I'm trying to think of other small things. The Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy, which is super inconsequential, so like, there's been a lot of minor conflicts, the New Rebellion, things that have been resolved by the end. Everything in Young Jedi Knights, like the Shadow Academy arc, basically only affected the Jedi mainly. The Diversity Alliance arc could have affected a lot of people, but it was stopped before it became a major crisis. And then, the last 3 books in Young Jedi Knights was like on Cloud City, so it only affected Cloud City mainly, and it was a bunch of like gangsters, so like it's a minor thing. And the same thing with Junior Jedi Knights. So like all the stuff we've been doing with outside of like the Thrawn trilogy and stuff, and even the Jedi Academy trilogy, even though that was a little bit worse because it included the Empire, but for the most part, there's been a lot of small conflicts going on. And the New Republic, especially Boris Vela, does not see this as a big threat yet, because the Vong aren't throwing in all their towels in one basket. They are testing the defenses, testing the waters, seeing what they can throw at the New Republic, seeing what they can throw at the Jedi before they launch fully into an invasion. We also learn, kind of by the end of this book, that the things that happened in Vector Prime were a bit premature. But I can't get too much into that until we get in the next book. But basically, what happened in the last book wasn't necessarily supposed to happen. There was meant to be something else, but it got usurped by something else. That's all I'll say there. So, the New Republic doesn't see it as a problem, as a threat that they need to really dedicate time to. So they are basically ignoring it for all intents and purposes. And the friction with the Jedi Knights and the government is a big thing right now too. So everything's kind of in flux. But yeah, I absolutely enjoyed this first part of this duology. I enjoyed reading about Corran. I enjoyed Luke and Jason's interactions. Mostly because I can use it against other people. Because I'm not freaking stupid. I'm paying attention. I'm writing down everything to piss you all off. To make sure that I'm not insane. And then, everything with Mara and Anakin was phenomenal. Loved that. So yeah, overall, I think without getting into stuff, if you haven't read it, if you have read it, you can stick around for spoilers. If you haven't read it, I mean, it's NJO. It is so worth it. It really culminates, like Cornhorn. Like, you could read this without reading X-Wing, but you care so much more because of it. Corran's got a wife. He's got kids now. I mean, we kind of already knew that by Hand of Thrawn, but still, like, it's just nice, to feel that continuity, to feel that, to my time, I invested all this time, and it is being rewarded in this series. Like, it's so cool. Outside of Jason, which I've talked about before, but, all this is, it matters, and same thing, with Mara and her love for Luke, which is super nice and great for him. And then, I didn't even mention it, but of course, Han is a miserable drunk right now. He is still reeling with the death of Chewbacca, and he's been unable to kind of... He won't actually do anything till the next duology where he gets to actually go and do stuff. But right now, he's just a ball of stinkiness and crying. His clothes are dirty. He hasn't washed them in days. He hasn't taken a shower. He hasn't done much except for drink because he can't do anything. He's too depressed, and that's really awful to see Han in such a state. But that's the thing, right? It leaves room. It gives Han something, because his character arc finished already, but now we have something that he has to overcome now. The death of someone so close to him, which he hasn't had to really deal with before, So I think that works out absolutely spectacularly. In the same tone, you also have Anakin, who, even though intellectually he knows that Chewbacca's death is not his fault, he still can't get over that. So there's all these layers there to that, and it's amazing, it's poignant, and it's such a great read. And so do I recommend this book? Abso-frickin-lutely I do. Read this if you haven't. Alright? It's New Jedi Order. It's the peak of Star Wars. But again, read everything else first. I highly recommend it. At least post Return of the Jedi. You could skip Bounty Wars. Maybe Black Fleet Crisis. But you should read it if you can hear that, smart brother. But yeah, please read it. I'm going to get into spoilers now. If you don't want spoilers, get out. Okay. Let's see. Senate debate, prejudiced. I enjoyed this quite a bit. This whole conversation of, prejudiceness against aliens, and now you finally understand what we had to do with the da-da-da, and it's just very... It's so Boris Vela, and I love it. But also, politics in the prequels is boring, yet NJO is filled to the brim with politics. Oh my god. See, it's good. You just are all stupid. If you didn't understand the politics of the prequels, then you just didn't pay attention because it made sense as a 5-year-old, or at least the gist of what I needed to know made sense. Politics isn't boring. Politics enhances a world. Every good sci-fi or fantasy setting has it. Game of Thrones has it. What else? Dune has it. Oh my god. It actually enhances your setting. think Star Trek. Anyway, just get better. Like, get good, man. I don't know what to tell you. Gavin adopted kids, which is cool, and he also had his own biological kid with his wife, which is cool. Good for him. Corrin only officially like dropped everything else and became a Jedi after Hand of Thrawn. We also learned that Kip's 32. Just want to mention that because he was like a teenager in Jedi Academy, so that gives you a length of time to understand the time that's passed, and all that, because it is 20 years after the fact, because, Han's 50 and Luke and Leia are in their 40s, so, Han's grief, like, oh my god, it's so hard to read. I did a reading of this, it's up on my channel, but it is such good dialogue, and you really feel for Han, and it's just awful to see him in such a state. Oh, also, pissing off people, point number 2, because I made sure I'd write down everything that ever goes with accordance of my worldview to piss you all off. Point number 2 for Jason, always checking the world, verifying what he can assume, not trusting till he's certain, because Jason's an atheist, kind of. Jason is a doubter. He questions everything, trusts nothing until he can absolutely prove it himself. And this never goes away. Ever. Not after Traitor, nothing. He never stops questioning. He never stops doubting. Later on, we get to a point where he seems to think he knows better than Luke. And it isn't until Luke shuts him in his mouth does he stop doing that. But even so, he wishes to be more, which is framed in a positive light. But also, at this point in time of writing this book, Jason was supposed to die, not Anakin. And then that flipped and changed. I want to be better. I want to be more. We'll get back to that later and why that matters against all of you. Anakin's remorse to be with Mara, Anakin feels like Luke's putting him on this mission because he doesn't trust him. But that's the exact opposite, and Luke even says, I am putting you in the charge of protecting my wife, the person I hold most dear in this entire universe. So no, Anakin, it's not that I don't trust you, I trust you implicitly. And it was a really nice scene between them. Point number 3 for Jason. Let's see here. Jason wants to be a hermit, like Luke did in the Black Fleet Crisis. He's selfish and a hypocrite. Because later on he also says, how can you do this, Luke? We need to save the slaves. Who else talked like that? Oh, Anakin Skywalker. But let's not get on that right now. He criticizes and disdains everyone else for fighting, for doing what's right, and yet wants to run away, to contemplate the Force, to figure himself out. Oh, but he's a selfish little prick right now. It doesn't matter whichever way you slice it. Play on my intro, huh? He's a selfish little bastard right now. He wants to do what's right, he wants to protect people, but he doesn't want to do what he has to do in order to accomplish that. And Anakin even talks to him about this later on. You can't have your cake and eat it too, man. If you want to save people, then save people. Quit doing this dance around. It's frustrating, it's annoying, it's why I hate Jason in the first half of this series. And it doesn't end here. But again, selfishness and arrogance. Because he believes he knows better. He believes Luke, who has been a Jedi far longer than Jason has, is in the wrong. That every Jedi who doesn't do what he believes is the call of a Jedi is wrong. Oh, he uses these platitudes. He says, I'm proud of you, Anakin, for doing what you did, but then he'll constantly criticize, constantly critique. It is an issue. Mara and Luke. It was just a really cute scene between the two of them. I really enjoyed it. There's also a Farlander mention, which I thought was pretty freaking neat. Jaina has this whole thing about her mother's shadow and not wanting to be in her mother's shadow, which I thought was pretty neat. She doesn't want to be, the daughter of Leia. She wants to be Jaina Solo, and be whatever that means for her, which I thought was a really cool scene. Jaina joins Rogue Squadron. I mentioned this already. That's pretty sick. And then the Jason and his arrogance thing. He's criticizing Luke and everything, and Luke finally shuts him down. Thankfully, he's like, you are 16. As smart as you are, as much as you know, as strong as you are only 16. You don't know everything. Basically, shut the hell up. Amen, Luke. Put him in his place. Mara and Anakin have this wonderful scene. It's very similar to what Mara talks to Luke about. Sorry about that. And then also, I did have a point here. Kind of got lost in real life. But, yeah, so Jason talks about not wanting to be like a Jedi Knight, but also knowing that he needs to help people, but also how he wants to be more than a Jedi, more than what Luke is, apparently, because that's not good enough. He wants to be more, whatever that means. He wants to be more. And again, this is framed in a positive light because Jason was meant to die, but he ends up not dying. So this is a rather problematic view to have, I think. Apparently all of you think that's just fine and dandy. That is an issue. I want more, but I know I shouldn't. Remember that? Yeah, we'll continue as we continue through the series and keep critiquing Jason here. But this is not out of character at all for what we see down the road. It is a natural progression. You may want a happier ending, but this makes more sense, considering the fact that he survives. So, he literally leaves Unifying Force to go find something more. That's why he leaves. Right? Maybe he does. And that leads to him changing. I don't know. But this perfect Jason who's just Qui-Gon, we'll see as I reread through it. I've yet to see what everyone's talking about as this perfect Jedi moving forward who's going to train Ben and be the savior of the galaxy for all time and space. I don't see where this came from. I don't see where you get this off. You just want a happy ending, and fair enough. Well, then you should end a Hand of Thrawn so that way no one dies or has to be unhappy. But your points are invalid. They don't work. And I'll keep proving to you why as we go through it. Anyway, that's it for this one. I had to make sure I talked about Jason, though, because slander's been going on for several years now from several different people. Whether it be the Force.net, whether that be Reddit, whether that be Facebook, whether that be Twitter, whether that be certain YouTube channels. Doesn't matter. Time to put you in your place. As best I know how. So, we shall continue on this. Don't you worry. But, yeah, also last thing, they kind of do like this Avengers thing, where they tease something at the end. Shadow Shy shows up in like the last chapter, and he's going to be the main antagonist of the next book. So we'll see more of him then, but that's basically it. Anyway, love this book. Absolutely love it. Love all the characters, including Jason. I know I'm like kind of ragging on him, but I think he's a well-developed like 5D character, not even just 3D. Like, he is one of the most fleshed out individuals of all time, and I love him for that. But people just want to see him succeed and end there. They can't fathom anything bad ever happening to their characters, so he has to be perfect for all time and space because people don't regress. It's not like Luke joined the Emperor after becoming the strongest Jedi around in Dark Empire or anything, or, apparently, no one can regress or change because of circumstance and viewpoints and age. We just must remain the same and, be perfect once we've had our development, honestly, like, Han shouldn't even be sad because, he's gone through his character development. He should just be perfect all the time. Qui-Gon Jinn. I don't know. What do I know about characters, right? But that's it for now. Until next time, we shall see what Shadow Shy is up to in the next book, and see what else is in store for us in book 2. Until then, Micheal Stackpole is a phenomenal writer, and may the Force be with you.